I've been having a lot of back and forth with Hezbollah trolls recently on Twitter and other social media, YouTube comments, etc. And I think that I have to give them credit for being correct about something. The US does actually get something out of its relationship with Israel. I've been saying all this time that basically the US is Israel's bitch and it gets nothing out of this relationship. It's basically being used and thrown away like a prostitute, but without the payment, basically like a cheap slut, but again, without the payment. It's not even a cheap slut, it's a gratuitous slut. I don't even know what you would call it. But honestly, that is an insult to sluts, whores, and other women of easy virtue, so I apologize in advance to those females participating in the world's oldest profession. You guys have way more integrity than the US and Israel ever will. So the US does actually get something out of this relationship because Israel makes the US look sane. Israel makes the US look like it respects human rights, like it actually treats people like human beings instead of like cannon fodder for use only in target practice. Israel makes the US look like it treats all citizens equally, like it has no racism or classism or anything sort of unfair prejudice. Basically, that it treats all its citizens equally. Because if you look at Israel, I mean, come on, these guys make apartheid South Africa look like the pinnacle of social justice. So yes, the U.S. does get something out of the relationship. However, that doesn't change the fact that the upcoming vote in the House on this Senate resolution that was the first resolution to be passed in 2019 after the government shutdown was ended, which is appalling in and of itself, because you would think that, like, coming out of a huge government shutdown, that you're trying to get the government back working again, and you can't because you're just spent 3 weeks playing legislative chicken over building a border wall. You would think that they would, like, do something to get the government back in order and working and whatnot. No, they did pass a resolution to allow states the authority to punish people for participating in boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And also to, like, verify that more and more taxpayer dollars would be shoveled into the maw of Israel in perpetuity, basically. So that resolution, which passed the Senate 77-23, that's 77 traitors we have in our Senate, by the way. Of course, all of the Israeli press were saying, oh, well, those 23, or we better watch them, and they put up their names as if to, like, name and shame. Well, those 23 are the only people who are not traitors in our Senate, so that's really disgusting when you have literally more than 3/4 of one house of Congress is just, they put it right out there. They really have no loyalty to the country that elected them. It's not a question of dual loyalty. It's a question of loyalty in general, because if you don't affirm people's rights to boycott a foreign government, then you don't actually believe in the Constitution, and you swore an oath, motherfucker. So, like, uphold that shit. And there's really no excuse. I mean, anybody who is coming out against these boycotts, Ilhan Omar, I mean, it's fashionable to hate on Ilhan Omar these days, as it always has been, because, when AIPAC wants you to do something, a lot of people will just jump and do it, especially the useful idiots who don't even realize they're doing AIPAC's bidding, but I digress. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who I don't really like, but whatever, she's correct on this front, have come forward with this resolution affirming Americans' right to boycott. Now, just to, like, read a little bit of this, because there's all this going around of, oh yeah, they said America is garbage, and we hate them, how dare they, they're so ungrateful. Well, you never actually provide an example of where they said America was garbage, or that they hated it, or that they're ungrateful in any way. This is all basically created. This is crafted out of whole cloth. Yes, they have complained about America. It's patriotic to do so, actually, because if you just wholly swallow what's going on in America right now and accept that at face value, it's not very patriotic at all, because America is a mess. America is a fucking disaster. And hopefully people join Congress because they want to fix it. I mean, that was what Donald Trump supposedly did when he was running for president. Of course, he was all about making Israel and not America great again. I wrote a whole editorial on that already. I will link in the description because I don't feel the need to rehash those talking points. However, reading some of Ilhan Omar's resolution here, this is common sense stuff. This is stuff that really should not be controversial at all. The fact that it is just shows how fucked up our country is. But affirming that all Americans have the right to participate in boycotts in pursuit of civil and human rights at home and abroad, as protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. So far, so good, right? you got a complaint with that, then you need to have your head examined or, like, take a second look at what country you're living in, because that's pretty uncontroversial. Affirmative all Americans have the right to participate in boycotts as protected by the First Amendment, whereas boycotts have been effectively used in the United States by advocates for equal rights since the Boston Tea Party and include boycotts led by civil rights activists during the 1950s and 1960s in order to advocate for racial equality, such as the Montgomery bus boycott, and promote workers' rights, such as the United Farm Workers-led boycott of table grapes. Whereas Americans of conscience have a proud history of participating in boycotts to advocate for human rights abroad, including, now here's the fun part, 1. Attempting to slow Japanese aggression in the Pacific by boycotting Imperial Japan in 1937 and 1938. 2. Boycotting Nazi Germany from March 1933 to October 1941 in response to the dehumanization of the Jewish people in the lead-up to the Holocaust. See? Foreign boycotts have a strong tradition that actually includes the Jewish people. 3. The United States Olympic Committee boycotting the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in the preceding year. Now that one, I mean, we kind of made them do that, so that's a little disingenuous. But 4, leading the campaign in the 1980s to boycott South African goods in opposition to apartheid in that country. Now, people who are experts on this, like UN human rights rapporteurs and whatnot, they compare the Israeli situation to South Africa and find in South Africa's favor, because the South African situation was never quite as bad as the Israeli situation. Yes, it was bad. It was terrible. It was racist and fucked up and wrong. But the Israeli situation is more racist and more fucked up and more wrong. The South Africans didn't have guards posted at the fence where non-violent protesters were protesting every day and mowing down journalists and mowing down medics and mowing down children and amputees and other defenseless persons. Israel does that. And again, this is what the U.S. gets out of it, because next to them, we look like the picture of restraint. Even the stuff that Blackwater was doing in Iraq, massacring, slaughtering villagers, that shit looks sane next to what Israel does. So, sorry, Hasbara trolls, I was wrong. The U.S. does get something out of our relationship with Israel. We get to look like reasonable, sane human beings. We get to look like not monsters. And I mean, we need that help, because the U.S. in the countries that it's interfering in is monsters. The shit that we're doing in Saudi Arabia, blowing up school buses full of children, that bomb that did that was a U.S. bomb that Saudi Arabia bought from us. So that's, I mean, this is why I get so worked up about this, because this is my tax dollars going to do the shit that Israel is doing. This is my $10 million a day that's going to do this shit. If, you try to say that it's anti-Semitic to single Israel out. Well, name one other country that's committing war crimes with U.S. taxpayer dollars, besides the U.S. itself, which I also criticize constantly because, you know, the saying is not in my name. Yeah, not in my name. And, so name one other country that does that. Let's see. Whereas the Supreme Court, in the 1966 case, Rosenblatt versus Bayer, held that the First Amendment to the Constitution ensures that criticism of government is at the very center of the constitutionally protected area of free discussion. It was 1966. That wasn't the dawn of time. I believe that things that happened in 1966 still apply. Whereas the Supreme Court held in 1982 case NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware, the right of the state to regulate economic activity could not justify a complete prohibition against a nonviolent, politically motivated boycott. Whereas the Supreme Court has recognized various activities, expressive conduct, warranting constitutional protections such as flag burning, wearing black armbands, silent sit-ins, and creating and designing custom wedding cakes. And whereas, despite this tradition, governments and non-governmental organizations alike have sought to criminalize, stigmatize, and delegitimize the use of boycotts in an attempt to stifle constitutionally protected political expression, now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives affirms that all Americans have the right to participate in boycotts in pursuit of civil and human rights at home and abroad, as protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. 2. Opposes unconstitutional legislative efforts to limit the use of boycotts to further civil rights at home and abroad. And 3. Urges Congress, states, and civil rights leaders from all communities to endeavor to preserve the freedom of advocacy for all by opposing anti-boycott resolutions and legislation. That's it. That's the whole resolution. How the fuck do you come out against that? They're not going to vote on it, of course, because to vote on it, they would have to admit that their dual loyalty, the dual loyalty they say is an anti-Semitic trope, it's not dual loyalty. They're loyal to Israel. First and foremost, they're loyal to the donors. It's not because they have a particular affection for the country of Israel. It's not because they think that Israel is the pinnacle of democracy. Oh, yes, our only ally in the Middle East. So why is that? Because you bombed every other country in the Middle East? Yeah, you made it your only ally. It's not a democracy any more than we are. But then again, the word democracy doesn't mean what it used to. I've done a whole video on that already, so I'm not going to bother to go into that again. But I'm running out of space here, so just, yeah, before you start trashing Ilhan Omar and the squad, I mean, it's a little embarrassing what they're doing with the whole concentration camps at the border. I mean, seriously, you guys care about the migrants flowing in, but you don't give a shit about homeless people or, families getting split up because their fathers are locked in jail for drug crimes or for no crimes. I mean, there's a lot of innocent people in jail. And, yeah, this selective moral outrage is really sad and pathetic, and I wish that people would stop doing it. But, that doesn't, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Ilhan Omar is the only congresswoman with the guts to call out the Israeli lobby for what it's doing, aka buying congressmen wholesale. Cynthia McKinney before her, of course. Cynthia McKinney paved the way for Ilhan Omar. I don't think there would be an Ilhan Omar if there wasn't a Cynthia McKinney. But, yeah, and this whole assault on her, before you open your mouth and start shitting on Ilhan Omar, because we all shit out our mouths. This is America, guys. Come on, we shit out our mouths here. You don't do that, you ain't patriotic. Be aware you're doing apex work. So I would re-examine your priorities here. Ilhan Omar may say some dumb things, but at least she doesn't have blood on her hands. If there was any semblance of, like, justice or fairness or any just, like, holding people to their word and stuff, there would be a lot of people being impeached from Congress after things like the vote on Senate Bill SB1 or SR1, I forget how they number them, because you can't say that, you can't swear an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution and then the first thing you do of the year, the first thing you do as a congressperson is to attempt to strip U.S. citizens of their constitutional rights. You just can't. I mean, it's not a question of, oh, well, yeah, they're our ally, we have to, I mean, you're getting back to Lyndon Johnson and the USS Liberty with, I'm not going to embarrass our allies for a couple of dead sailors. He actually said that. That was, like, his actual words. He's on tape saying that. I guess, yeah, little else to say, except that it is an American's right to boycott. It's a totally uncontroversial resolution. It will never see the floor vote because Pelosi certainly isn't going to let that shit get anywhere near the floor. I don't know if it's specifically on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Actually, I should check. Is it on the Foreign Affairs Committee? I don't think so. I don't think it's just getting out of the committee. Oh, yeah. It says, latest action referred to the House Committee on the Judiciary. It was introduced, referred to the Judiciary Committee. Who's head of the Judiciary Committee? What's his name? Oh, fuck, Nadler? Dude, the shit is doomed. Nadler is, like, yikes. For one thing, he's clinically insane. I mean, this guy, like, he's Russiagate cultist, ne plus ultra of Russiagate cultist. They're screwed. They're never gonna get a vote, which is too bad because, like, this should pass easily. And I would say that anybody who is concerned about how their representative is going to vote when they take up that House version of the anti-BDS bill that the Senate passed, take names and vote those fuckers out, because this isn't a question of dual loyalty. This isn't a question of splitting your loyalty between one place and another. If you vote against the U.S. Constitution, you're breaking your oath of office, and you should be marched out on the lawn and pantsed and thrown into traffic. I mean, it should be embarrassing. I'm not saying that anybody needs to be taken out and shot or anything. That's violence is wrong. I mean, violence is wrong. But they should be thoroughly embarrassed publicly for this. So I would say tarred and feathered. I mean, that's the way they used to do things in the old days. Maybe put out in the stocks or something. You should erect stocks on the Capitol lawn and put them in those. But the thing is that there'll be a lot of stocks because there's going to be hundreds of motherfuckers who's going to be populating those things. So just get a lot of tar, a lot of feathers, and make these bitches, like, just publicly shame them endlessly. Make sure they don't keep getting elected because, like, we need term limits. These Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's and Mitch McConnell's, they're so, like, this is embarrassing. Whatever, term limits, motherfucker. This boycott thing, like, if we can't boycott, then we have, I mean, this is the nail in the coffin of the First Amendment. Obviously, we know we have no free speech because they've colluded with the big tech to take away what was left of that. And of the Patriot Act, what the Patriot Act started, big tech hath finished, and the House of Representatives is about to completely finish, put the last shovel full of dirt on the pile. This is embarrassing, man. I mean, if you're an American and you're not criticizing your country right now, either you're asleep, you're stupid, or you're a traitor. So, I mean, pick your poison. We got a lot of fucking traitors out there, and I would like to see them removed from the government immediately, now.